The Middle East is on fire, oil is trading at over $100 a barrel, Iranian missiles are carving craters into Tel Aviv neighborhoods, and the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that controls a fifth of the world's energy supply, is effectively closed. But here's the question nobody is asking out loud. Who actually stops this war? Because right now, America is caught between a president who wants a deal and a reality that may not allow one. Pakistan just stepped forward and said, "We'll host the talks." Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif went on X and told the world his country stands ready and honored to bring the US and Iran to the same table. That's a remarkable sentence, because as of right now, Iran is publicly denying those talks even exist. So either someone is lying or something far more complicated is happening behind closed doors. And either way, the consequences land right here. On your gas bill, your grocery receipt, your retirement account, the cost of everything. This is where we need to pay close attention. Let's establish the baseline first, because this story moves fast. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran. The stated reason, Iran's nuclear program had reached a threshold Washington and Tel Aviv could no longer tolerate. Oman, the quiet diplomatic backchannel between Iran and the West for years, said significant progress had been made in talks. Washington disagreed. Strikes began anyway. What followed was swift and catastrophic. Iran didn't collapse. Iran retaliated. It struck countries hosting U.S. military bases. It targeted Gulf energy infrastructure. And it effectively sealed the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas flows every single day. The result? The worst energy supply shock in recorded history. Brent crude hit $114 a barrel Monday morning. That's not a number. That's a weapon aimed at every working American. Now here's what Washington isn't saying. Trump stepped back. He postponed for 5 days, of course, a planned strike on Iran's electricity grid. And he said something unusual for a wartime president. He called the conversations with Iran very good and productive. He mentioned his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff were directly involved. 5 days. That's the timeline he gave himself. But within hours, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, reportedly the man the Iranian side designated as their interlocutor, went public and called reports of these talks fake news. So you have Trump announcing progress, and Iran denying the conversation even happened. That's not just a contradiction, that's a strategic message. When a country at war tells you we're not talking, it usually means one of two things. Either they genuinely aren't, and someone is manufacturing hope, or they are talking and they don't want their own hardliners to know it yet. Both possibilities should concern you. Here's where it gets serious. 3 senior Israeli officials, speaking anonymously, told reporters they believe Trump is determined to make a deal, but they also said they consider it unlikely Iran will accept U.S. terms. Those terms are expected to include hard caps on Iran's nuclear program and restrictions on its ballistic missile development. Meanwhile, 3 senior sources inside Tehran said something that should send a chill through every foreign policy analyst in Washington. Iran's negotiating position has actually hardened since the war began, not softened, hardened. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, is now the dominant force shaping Iran's decision-making. And the IRGC doesn't negotiate from weakness. It never has. So here's the dynamic. Trump needs a deal before his 5-day window closes. Iran's military establishment doesn't want one. And oil markets, and with them, the American economy, are watching every press statement like a heart monitor. Brent crude was already climbing back Tuesday, up around 3% to $103 a barrel, even after Monday's brief pullback. Business surveys across major economies showed energy price surges were already dampening economic activity and driving inflation expectations higher. You feel that? That's not distant geopolitics. That's your gas pump. That's your heating bill next winter. That's the price of shipping the goods you order online. But here's what changed everything overnight. While diplomats argued about whether talks were even happening, Iranian missiles were hitting Tel Aviv. Air raid sirens sounded across Israel's commercial capital. A missile struck a residential neighborhood, blowing out the walls of an apartment building, scattering debris across the street. At the same time, Israel's Air Force was running strikes on central Tehran, more than 50 targets in a single night. command centers, ballistic missile storage sites, IRGC intelligence facilities. 8 people were killed in a strike on Tabriz, a city of 1.7 million people in northwestern Iran. This is still a hot war, and someone, maybe Pakistan, maybe Oman, maybe a back channel no one's confirmed yet, is trying to find a door before it closes permanently. Open loop. Will that door actually open? And what does America have to offer Iran that could make it work? This is where the strategy either succeeds or collapses. Pakistan's offer to host talks is genuinely significant, and not just symbolically. Pakistan is a nuclear state. It has complex relationships with both the West and with Iran. It's deeply invested in Gulf stability because millions of Pakistani workers send remittances home from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait. If the Gulf burns, Pakistan's economy burns with it. Shehbaz Sharif isn't offering this out of charity. He's offering it because Pakistan needs this war to end, and that makes him a potentially credible broker. But a Pakistani government source put it plainly, discussions are at an advanced stage, but even if they happen, he called it a big if. And if talks do begin, the timeline is within a week, 1 week, in a war where missiles are flying every night. Here's why this matters strategically for the United States, beyond the headlines. America went into this conflict with a clear objective: eliminate Iran's nuclear threat before it crossed an irreversible threshold. Israel pushed hard for this. Trump, who had already walked away from the Iran nuclear deal once, ultimately agreed. But wars rarely stay contained to their original objectives. This one is already spreading. Israel is simultaneously running military operations in Lebanon against Hezbollah, Iran's most capable regional proxy. An Iranian missile was intercepted over Lebanese airspace Tuesday for the first time, reportedly by a foreign naval vessel. That means more military actors are directly involved than the headlines suggest. And China? Russia? They're watching every move. Russia benefits from elevated energy prices. China, which has been quietly building economic relationships across the Gulf, is watching its energy supply chains get strangled in real time. The longer this war goes, the more leverage both nations accumulate over countries that need alternative energy solutions. Here's the fact anchor that frames everything. The Strait of Hormuz handles roughly 20% of global oil and LNG flows. Before this conflict, markets absorbed disruptions. Today, with the strait effectively closed, there is no easy alternative. The world is not just watching this war, the world is paying for it, at the pump, at the store, in their portfolios. Now, some analysts will argue Iran is overextended. Its economy was already under severe sanctions pressure. The IRGC cannot sustain this escalation indefinitely. Eventually, Iran will have to come to the table. That's not wrong, but it's incomplete. Because Iran doesn't need to win this war. It only needs to make the cost unbearable for the other side. Closing the Strait of Hormuz is a masterclass in asymmetric pressure. Iran didn't defeat America's military. It attacked America's economy, and by extension, every allied economy on Earth. Every day that strait stays closed is a day the pressure on Washington intensifies, not decreases. Iran knows this. The IRGC has studied it for decades. So here's the final open loop, the one that keeps serious analysts up at night. Trump has 5 days, maybe less. He wants a deal. His own advisors are skeptical. Israel's leadership is nervous. Iran's hardliners are in control. Pakistan is offering a table, and oil markets are pricing in the worst. If Trump can pull off a deal, even a partial ceasefire, even a temporary framework, it would be one of the most consequential diplomatic maneuvers in modern American history. Energy markets would correct, the economic bleeding would slow, and America's credibility as a power that can stop wars, not just start them, would be restored. If he can't, the 5 days expire. The strikes on Iran's power grid resume. Tehran retaliates against U.S. allies. The Gulf descends further into chaos. And the American economy, already absorbing inflation from supply shocks, takes another hit it can't easily absorb. Here's the summary line worth remembering. Pakistan isn't offering peace talks out of idealism. It's offering them because the alternative, a Middle East in permanent flames, destroys everyone's economy, including its own. And that's exactly why Washington should take the offer seriously. This war isn't just being fought with missiles. It's being fought with oil prices, with currency reserves, with shipping lanes, and with the daily cost of living for hundreds of millions of people, including Americans. The question isn't whether Trump can make a deal. The question is whether a deal is even possible when the people who would have to make it are publicly denying they're talking. And if they're not talking, then the next 5 days may be the most expensive stretch of time America has experienced since 2008. If you want analysis like this, not partisan spin, not cable news noise, but sharp strategic breakdowns of what's actually happening in the world and what it means for America, subscribe to Washington Today. We cover power the way Washington actually operates, not the way they tell you it does. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next development in this story isn't going to wait for you to find it.